Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with writer, Reverend, and podcast host James W. Smith. Amongst many things, he is a former practicing attorney, former compulsive gambler, ex-offender, along with serving 5 years in a federal correctional institution for armed bank robbery. He is a retired pastor of a historical missionary Baptist church in Durham County, North Carolina, where he served for almost 32 years. These days, he is the author of 3 books, married, has 2 kids. He is happy and ready to talk. Enjoy this interview.
James, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show today. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Before we get into your life, I want to know first and foremost, we've just gone through quite a thing with this pandemic, and it's just done different things to all of us. And I'm curious, how did you survive that last 3 years going through this pandemic, and how has it changed the way that you live your life now that the world's waking up and we're coming out of it?
Well, I've gone through something much worse, so it wasn't as hard as it probably would have been for a lot of people. And what I did, I just took the time to reflect on a lot of things that I had gone through. And believe it or not, I took that moment to write my second book. And that's what I did. And I finished writing. And, of course, my church, I was still pastoring, and I got them attuned to Zoom. So we got on Zoom, never missed a beat, never missed anything regarding the finances of the church. So everything went fine with us. We made certain that we followed the CDC protocols, and we really didn't have a real problem. I just rested and know we could do too much, so that's what I did.
So to get a better grasp as a writer and a pastor, to get a better handle on exactly what you do on a daily basis, I'm going to hypothetically put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day, and one of the kids will look up at you and ask, "What do you do for a living?" How would you answer them?
Oh, I would tell them that I do a lot of writing, and of course, at this point, during the COVID, I was still pastoring, so that was my job. I got paid monthly from my pastorate. Then, I also got some revenues in from selling my books. Not a whole lot, but I got some. And of course, I'm always called to do other engagements. Now that I have retired, most of my income comes from obviously my Social Security, and of course then from my being called by other pastors, and I'm doing the podcasting, and I've got a line on my website regarding my books and my other items that I deal with. And so it's from that viewpoint that I continue to strive and do well.
So when you were in the 3rd grade, what was your dream when you grew up? What did you want to become?
When I was in the 3rd grade, believe it or not, I always talked about being a doctor. But I grew up in a small rural town, and we didn't have all of the basic necessities in school that qualified me to go in that area. I didn't take chemistry in high school because they didn't offer it at the time. And when I got off to college, I realized that I was a little behind. So I decided that I would go into accounting. And, of course, I had a pretty good background in math in high school, so I decided to go that route. And later, I had an interest in law, so I finally went to law school. And, of course, that's where I ended up.
So let's get to where you were born and raised, and kind of how some of the foundational pieces of you and the seed, so to speak, were sprinkled in you to give as much as you give as a pastor and as a writer. How did all of this begin and grow into who you are today?
Well, a lot of it grew, and a lot of it happened as a result of what I went through. After I got out of law school, I started practicing law in my hometown, and of course, later on, got into gambling, and it caused me some serious problems. I ended up committing a crime, ended up serving some time, and of course, during this whole process, my whole life began to take a new turn. And that's what happened to me to get me where I am now. I just decided that, that was, I had to do something different. And I did. And for the last, I got out in 1986. And since that time, I went back to school, received my MD and my DMin, started pastoring, and of course pastored the same church for almost 32 years, and still doing some inspirational speaking based upon what I went through, and that's kind of what happened to me.
So in your life of, finding different paths and inspiration, who has been kind of a consistent role model or hero for you?
My consistent role model or hero has basically just deceased about a month ago. He was probably about 15 years older than I am, and a minister here in the Durham area. And we met when I got out, and we talked. He shared a lot with me. Matter of fact, was very responsible, or had a lot to do with my becoming called at the church that I pastored for almost 32 years. So he had a lot of influence on me. We talked, we ate together every week until, health got a little bad for him, and until my wife retired, and of course his wife also got a little sick, and that kind of stopped us from eating every week, but we contacted each other. We ate at least about once a month, sometimes twice. And so he was a real big influence on me, especially after I got out and, started I call it my new life.
So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, who would it be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Who would I love to meet and talk to? Anybody who's on the planet right now. That's a very hard question. I'm trying to think through that. It would probably somebody who is alive. I'm trying to just think. I guess it's because I just hadn't given that a real thought, because I was so that my mentor and I was so close and involved and talked about everything, and so he was kind of the backbone of that for me. But I would suspect probably.
I mean, it could be anybody from your past. It could be, we could open it up to anybody that's not even alive now. Anybody in the history. Who would you love to talk to?
Oh, that's probably Martin Luther King.
So let's get to kind of, every day you wake up, you have things that you want to do, things that you want to accomplish. What's the main motivator for you? What gets you up and moving and accomplishing what you do in your life?
Well, at this point, I got into podcasting, and I did it because I wanted to continue my ministry after retiring. I retired from the church in December 31st of last year, and I wanted to continue my ministry. So I decided that I think podcasting would be a good way for me to do that, because I wanted to encourage, inspire, and hopefully transform lives. And I thought I could do that by highlighting people, guests who had done just that, who had been down, got up, wrote about it or talked about it and shared how they did it. And so that's what I started doing, and that has been going really good, and it motivates me to keep doing it. And I feel, I was just telling my wife this morning, is one thing that I really, really have fallen in love with, and I'm enjoying it.
You know, I can tell you from my perspective of doing this on a regular basis, and I've been doing jazz radio for a long time, interviewing musicians, and I've been interviewing people my whole life, is I think it's a really good modern version of therapy for people. As divided as this past 3 years has been for us, I think it's a really good way for all of us to get together to find a level of empathy and understanding. I just think it's a really, really good way of us to get to know each other and understand how we are all a little bit more alike than we think we are.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I do agree with that.
So let me ask you this. Let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into, say, the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained throughout your life, the trials, the tribulations you've overcome, the things you've succeeded in. What would you tell your young version?
Stay focused. One word, stay focused. I think, that's what gets us into trouble. We lose our focus. You know, I lost my focus, and that's how I really got into the situation that I got into. I didn't stay true to who I knew I was or should have been, and I got off into doing some things that I should not have done. But, you know, I guess the good thing about it, that even when you do mess up, you know, if you still kind of get yourself together and stay focused as to where you want to go, you can come back and you can do well. And that's what I did. And I would share that with young folk, anybody who was just getting started, 20 years old. That's what I would tell them.
So as a writer, what was the book for you growing up that you read that either made you want to write or gave you that love of reading?
Well, when I was growing up, I had no concept of writing. As a matter of fact, I had no concept of writing at all. You know, read a couple of books. It's been so long. I always say my wife, one of the first books I read that really stuck with me, that I loved to death, and try to find it now. I wanted to read it again. That was Robinson Crusoe. But it was, I never had a thought of writing. What happened when I started writing was I didn't do it to write a book. I did it for therapy. I started just writing what happened to me and how it happened and how I went down and the forces behind it all. And it was more of therapy for me. But when I got out from confinement, you know, a couple of my friends and family members read what I had written, and they were the one who encouraged me to put it in the form of a manuscript and get it published. They thought it was a good book that people could learn from it, and that's what I did. And that was some years after I had gotten out, probably about 5 or 6 years after I had gotten out, that I did that. And then from then that's when, you know, the writing kind of got me. So during this COVID time is when I sat back and wrote another second edition to the first book.
So of all of the things that you've been through in your life, all of the things you've accomplished and the things that you've succeeded in, what are you the proudest of? When you really think on your life and look back on everything you've done, what brings you the most pride?
My pastorate. Pastoring was very fulfilling. I'm being very fulfilled now, even doing the podcasting, because I'm talking with, just some very inspiring and encouraging folk who comes on my podcast as guests. and just to hear their stories and what they have done and how they've come back and how they have succeeded has been really, really inspiring. So that's also good. But I guess my almost 32 years of pastoring was very fulfilling. I felt like I made a difference.
So everyone out there in all of the different roles that you've played in your life have a perception of you, your family, your friends, clients, colleagues, but ultimately you're in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, I think I'm a real compassionate person. I think I'm realistic. I think I'm kind, humble, and I've learned a lot of that from what I've gone through. You know, my experiences taught me so much. You know, I learned that the darkest hour was just before dawn. I also share with folks that whatever you're going through, you just need to confront it and deal with it. Accept responsibility for what you've done, and so those are things that that I deal with and try to live by. And I also tell them, don't let your circumstance be an excuse. I could have done that. I could have said, oh boy, what I did, nobody's going to, and I've had that happen. I had people to tell me I never would pastor, but I pastored for, almost 32 years. Folks told me that I would never be able to do anything with the state bar again. And of course, the state bar allowed me to teach ethics, mental health, and substance abuse for 11 years. I just gave it up when COVID came in. So, so those are the things that I share and talk to people about, and it's been very fulfilling.
So of all of the clients and all of the, parishioners and everybody that you've been involved with in your life, what's been the best fan letter, best response you've ever gotten from the work you've done?
Oh boy, I can't even answer that question. That's just, I get people even from reading my books, sending me information on emails, talking about how they've been inspired. I get people who pastors who are doing well and who will give me an email or give me a call and appreciate what I did for them. I mean, it's just not one thing that I can mention in answer to that question.
So if anyone out there wants to listen to your podcast, get your books, anything related to your world, where is the best place on the web for them to go?
They can get it from my website, which is dealbyme.com. And if you want my books, they can also get that from my website or either Amazon.com or either, any other bookstores. Just type the book in. And my first book was Deal by Me, A Golden Opportunity Blown. And the second book is Deal by Me, second edition, a self-evaluation. And both of them on my website, which is I sent out autographs, but they can also get them from Amazon.com.
Wonderful. Reverend James W. Smith, thank you for your time today. Thank you for opening up with your story. It's wonderful. I really appreciate it. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.